Nigeria's debt profile rose astronomically from 12.12 trillion naira in 2015 when the Buhari administration took over to the current figure of 46 trillion naira 8 years later. The government had repeatedly maintained its borrowings were for development and infrastructure. But for critics, the amount borrowed has not matched the level of infrastructure on ground.
For instance, very practically looking at the issue of oil subsidies that we're having, we have seen that a lot of the debt that we have is really going towards financing oil subsidy rather than going into infrastructural development and other amenities to shore up the economy, going more into consumption than production. So what we would really look at is using our natural resources that we have and the revenue that we get in a sustainable manner, such that we're able to begin to service very sustainably the debts that we already own. Looking again at the issue of gas, gas is one area we can look up to have revenue. We have talked for too long about the Nigeria-Morocco gas pipeline. We see that there's a lot of opportunities coming from the Russia-Ukraine war, but we are not utilizing that. Just imagine if we're able to send gas to Europe, that means they would depend on Nigeria for that energy, and then would have been able to have sustainable energy, which will cut down a lot of the capital flights that we're having.
Japan's debt to GDP ratio is about 266%, which is more than 2 times the GDP. Nigeria's current debt to GDP, if you are using the 46 trillion, is just around 21%. The difference between Nigeria and Japan is that Japan is borrowing for production, is borrowing to invest in areas, invest in infrastructure that would spoil economic growth and allow it to yield enough returns to pay back these loans over a period of time.
Nigeria, on the other hand, is said to be the largest economy and most populous country in Africa. In recognition of the unsustainable burden of foreign debt and accruing interest on its development, the Obasanjo administration in 2005 secured Nigeria's massive $18 billion debt relief from the Paris Club. Despite almost wiping the country's slate clean, successive governments have borrowed and are still borrowing. Infrastructure deficit, energy inefficiency, and other developmental gaps are still everyday realities.
Nigeria needs to take the energy transition seriously. Some of the reforms that we have committed to, like beneficial ownership, like contract transparency, and so on, they have a particular relevance for the extractive sectors, right? And this extractive sector is oil, gas, and mining. But the world is moving into the clean energy future, and we have an overarching regulation, the Petroleum Industry Act, that does not connect a bridge between our current fixation on fossil fuel extraction and that clean energy future which the rest of the world is going to.
Unemployment is also predicted to rise from 37.7% to 40.6% in 2023. This is what Nigeria's debt profile will look like when the Buhari administration exits office. A whopping 46.25 trillion naira for domestic and external debt stock, comprising borrowings by the federal government, states, and the FCT. So what economic implications will this have on Nigeria's growth?
If you are borrowing for consumption, what it means is that you are not able to generate, enough returns to pay back these loans, because these loans have their interest rates over a period of time when the moratorium, period has ended. And so we found ourselves in a situation where we are borrowing for consumption and to a large extent, in some instances, very inefficient, and also for capital projects.
But things might get tougher and inflation could rise if the new government implements its planned removal of fuel subsidy. To cushion the effect, the World Bank has given Nigeria another 800 million facility to be disbursed as subsidy removal palliative, subjecting the country to further indebtedness.
This is purely for consumption. We are going to borrow, about $800 million that we are going to share as palliatives to individuals. To what extent is that are those cash transfers going to lift people out of poverty? You know, put them in a situation whereby they are going to be able to pay taxes so that Nigeria will be able to pay back these loans over time. These are issues that we should be more critical about. This is not the first time Nigeria is borrowing for this sort of programs. But you ask yourself, over time, money that Nigeria has borrowed for this sort of consumption, has it achieved the aims that was set out to be achieved in the first place?
There is no reason for us to go to Europe to beg for $5-10 million when we can raise that right here within Africa. But we need to look at that enabling environment. We need to incentivize it. It's easy to incentivize a Western company coming to Nigeria than a Nigerian entrepreneur trying to do business within Nigeria. So you need to approve deals. You need to sign contracts and projects. Stop the delays on projects. If you do that, then you would let your market would work. You will see entrepreneurs and hardworking people be able to drive that.
The culture of borrowings has defined the economic policy of the Buhari government. But can the Tinubu administration devise ingenious ways of driving the economy without borrowing?
As difficult as it is and as unpalatable to the ears that it might sound, the petroleum subsidy regime has to end. It's a regime that has not profited Nigerians. The bulk of what is being subsidized is being smuggled across the borders. And money that should have been invested in human capital development, in improving access to education, improving access to quality healthcare, improving power infrastructure, providing support to small and medium-scale enterprises for job creation is what is now being used in a venture that has created an enabling environment for state capture. So that regime has to end.
We have to really focus on trying to get energy to everyday people. We in Nigeria right now, 90 million Nigerians don't have access to electricity. 90 million Nigerians cannot get up every day and say, I got lights on. That should be the first thing that we need to pay attention. Energy security. Second part, the other Nigerians that have access to electricity, they don't have reliable and abundant electricity. So that's a problem. We need to be able to use all of the above energy. And that would come with natural gas, it would come with wind, it would come with solar to be able to drive up industrialization and drive up economic stability in this country.
The 2024 budget, which will be the first expenditure framework of the incoming government, will provide clarity on whether there will be a deviation from the past.